Hi guys, and welcome back to Slice of Mike. Today I'm doing my June book haul. It's been a long time since I did a book haul. I think the last one I did was back in March. I've just been trying to spend less money on books and actually read the books that I own because I have a ton that I just haven't read. So I think it makes more sense to read those before I go out and get new books. Even so, I couldn't stop myself completely from buying books, so there are about 10 titles I have to show you guys today. It's a very eclectic blend, but it's all stuff that I've been wanting for a while and decided that I could finally have it. And most of it's bought used, so at least that earns me a few bonus points, I guess. First things I have to show you are The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss and The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. These are both the first books in two fantasy series that I have not yet gotten to, and they've been on my list for a while, so I decided to finally just pick up the first books and see if I liked it or not. I have a huge problem with mass market paperbacks, but they are very cheap. I think I got each of these for like 50 cents at used bookstores, so you really can't beat that. And if I do decide to continue on with the series and purchase them for myself, I can go out and buy nicer versions of the books because these don't fill me with any positive emotions, personally. I have no idea what this series is about, and I have no idea what this series is about, but I've heard good things about both of them, so why not try my hand at them? That's what I say. Continuing the trend of randomness, I also picked up Salt, A World History by Mark Kurlansky. This is a non-fiction book about the role that salt trade has in the global food economy? I have no idea. I picked this up, number one, because it was very cheap. I think it was like 50 cents at Goodwill, and number two, I do like reading stories about food, especially stories about how food and food ingredients shape our world cultures. I think that is just really cool, so hopefully I like this. It might be a little dry because it's about salt. The next book I picked up was a little silly, but I saw the cover and I just had to get it, and it's silly because I already owned one version of it, but that book is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, which is just the best book that I've read in so long of a time. Originally I owned this copy, and this is the US cover, and then I saw the UK cover on Book Depository and I was like, yeah, totally, I need 2 copies of this book. Why not? My initial justification for buying a second copy of this book was that I could have a copy to loan out to people, but when you get a copy this beautiful of a book, you don't really want to loan it out. So I'm currently coping with that attachment anxiety, so maybe eventually, like in a few months after I've gotten used to owning it, I'll be able to lend this book out to people because it's just such a good book, and I loved it so much, obviously, that I had to own 2 copies. So that tells you how much I liked it right there. The next book I got is called The Dark is Rising by Susan Cooper, which is the first book in the Dark is Rising sequence, I guess we'll call it. This is a classic children's series that I've never read because I didn't hear about it until a few years ago, and then I saw this really vintagey cover at a bookstore and I thought it was just really cool. It was in great condition until I brought it home and ripped part of the cover, so that's fun. And I don't really know what it's about. I'm assuming it's about this evil hooded guy who wants to eat or kill or somehow harm children. I also just noticed that there are actually illustrations within the book. This appears to be a giant chicken, so I don't know how that plays into the story really. And here is a creepy horse thing with a bear, antlered bear human on top. I don't know what this is. It's kind of concerning. The next book I got is called Abroad by Katie Crouch, which I've actually already read, but I liked it so much I wanted to pick it up. This is a book about a girl who studies abroad in Italy, and she gets involved with the cool girl. She wants to be part of the in crowd. So she's hanging out with these girls, and then she learns that they actually deal drugs, and she gets involved in that, and that kind of just leads to unnecessary conflict and kind of dark things in her life. I like this book a lot because it was set in Italy, which I felt was a great location for the story that was being told. It was a dark story. It was about coming of age, but also about the dangers of popularity and getting involved with the wrong people, and I just thought it was a great story, so I had to pick it up for myself. The next book I got, I'm not too happy about because it came like this with a rip on the slipcover. Granted, it was in Book Outlet's scratch and dent section, so I guess it was my own fault. That book is The Interstings by Meg Wolitzer, which is probably my current favorite book of all time. I read this twice, and that's highly unusual for me. I hardly ever reread books, but it was just so good, and I loved all the characters, and I loved the themes in the book. Basically, this book is about growing up and realizing that some of your dreams are probably far-fetched, and also a lot of success in life is just based on luck and where you are and who you know, so it's kind of like dealing with not being as awesome as you want to be, but also it's about keeping hope even when you realize that you probably aren't going to be the person that you dreamt you would be when you were a young person. That probably sounds depressing, and yeah, it's a little bit depressing, but I just loved this book, and I thought the characters were so great. The writing is fantastic. It was actually the first Meg Wolitzer book that I've ever read, but it inspired me to pick up a different book by her, and also it inspired me to pick up this book, which is her retelling of The Bell Jar, essentially, which I haven't read, sadly, so I can't tell you how the two are connected, but I know this is about a young girl who is, I think she is a literary student living in or near New York City, so I hope it has kind of the same vibe as The Interstings, because that was just such a good book, and I'm expecting this to be similar. If I like this, I'm going to go read Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar, and I might be doing that in the incorrect order. Maybe I should read the classic before I read the retelling, but I do want to read this just because it's by Annette Pulitzer, and I love her so much. The next book I picked up, I know absolutely nothing about, but I picked it up based on the strength of its cover, and that is Moth Sparked by Anne Leonard. This book is just, it's beautiful, and I saw it on Book Outlet and I was like, yeah, I totally need that in my life. I just thought it sounded like a really cool book, and like I said, the cover is just absolutely stunning. I've seen it around, although I haven't actually heard anyone review it, so again, it could suck, but I only paid a few dollars for it, so I don't feel super indebted to actually liking this book. Isn't it pretty though? Come on, you have to admit it's a very good looking book. The last thing that I picked up I've been wanting for the longest time, and for some reason just haven't bought it for myself, so I finally decided to pick it up, and that is Dial H by China Miéville, and this is part of the New 52. I believe the series has been canceled after the second volume. This is the first volume. It's called Into You, and this is a story about Nelson, who finds a telephone booth, and when he dials a certain number, he's able to become a superhero. And so he does this several times, but every time he does it, he becomes a different superhero. I love the series because China Miéville, as you probably well know, is one of my favorite authors of all time. I think he's fantastic. He's very well known in the fantasy world, although this is his first try at the comic book industry. And I know a lot of the characters in it are super strange. Like, some of the superheroes are just like human water faucets and fire hoses, and I don't know, it's really hard to describe, but it's supposed to be very quirky and also dark and just kind of unlike anything DC has done before. I believe it's a reboot. I'm excited to read it. Like I said, I've been wanting it for a long time, and I will tell you more once I finish it. So that is the end of my June book haul. I hope you guys have equally exciting book buying adventures in your futures. If you guys have read any of the books that I've hauled today, please feel free to leave a comment below telling me what you thought of them. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these books. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will talk to you all very soon. Bye!